Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Parliamentary Commission investigating VAT fraud has announced that it has filed a notification to the prosecutor of the possibility of a crime having been committed by high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Finance in the previous government of the Civic Platform and Polish People's Party, namely the former minister Jacek Rostowski and his associates.
The first matter the Commission discussed was the notification of a possible crime I filed to the prosecutor. It concerns the people whose names often come up during our meetings, which are the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Rostowski, Deputy Minister Parafianowicz and Deputy Minister Grabowski. This motion revolves around the actions, or should I say lack of actions, of the Ministry concerning the electronics trade. Dotyczy ten wniosek działań, właściwie w znacznej mierze braku działań resortu finansów.
The Onet.pl website wrote yesterday that the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jacek Czaputowicz, supported reinstating Russia's right to vote during the meeting of the heads of foreign ministries of the Council of Europe, held in May in Helsinki. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs strongly denies this claim.
Jak tłumaczy polskie MSZ, Polska nie popierała I nie popiera.
As the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs claims, it doesn't and it didn't support reinstating Russia's right to vote in the Council of Europe. The declaration of May, which the Minister of Foreign Affairs Jacek Czaputowicz supported, concerns the organizational reform. Although the declaration says that all the member countries have an equal right to take part in the meetings of the entire organization. According to the Onet.pl website, the May declaration supported by the Polish government helped Russia to reinstate its right to vote. The Polish parliamentarians denied it. The opposition has many doubts regarding supporting the declaration made by the Polish government.
Polska nigdy nie poparła, nie popiera I nie będzie popierała.
Poland never has nor will it support lifting of sanctions on Russia or its return to any international organization it's been excluded from until the country fulfills all the necessary requirements. That is without question.
Rosji z jakiejś organizacji międzynarodowej. Sprawa jest bezdyskusyjna.
Przedstawiciele Polski.
The representatives of the Polish side during the meeting of the Council of Europe unambiguously and negatively judged Russia's politics, so it is hard to say that Poland supported Russia's efforts to reinstate its equal rights in the Council of Europe.
Tutaj Rosję w tych staraniach o przywrócenie pełnych praw w Radzie Europy.
Stanowisko Polski było dotąd jednoznaczne.
Poland's position regarding this matter was clear so far. Poland thinks that we have to impose sanctions on Russia because it invaded Ukraine, an independent and free country. Russia occupies the part of Ukraine, Crimea. That's why the international community and the Council of Europe should deplore it.
To potępiać również Rada Europy.
A Platforma Obywatelska.
The opposition has said that it will be demanding clarification in this matter.
After further debate, the President's bill to deal with the problem of Swiss franc-denominated mortgages was again sent to the Sejm's Finance Committee for further work. Deputies from the governing Law and Justice Party submitted 3 amendments to the bill, the most important of which is the removal of the provisions relating to the conversion fund, which requires banks to convert mortgages denominated in Swiss francs to Polish zloty.
This is yet another case of Parliament bowing to the banking lobby, said the president of the Stop Banks Lawlessness Association, Arkadiusz Szcześniak.
3-4 miesiące temu bankierzy
3 to 4 months ago, the bankers asked Parliament to delete the provision about the conversion fund, and today it happened, or rather the amendment was tabled last night.
w nocy została zgłoszona poprawka.
According to the chairman of the subcommittee on Swiss franc mortgage holders, Tadeusz Cymański, the draft, even without the conversion fund, is extremely necessary and constitutes a great help for those most in need.
Removing the conversion fund, because it raises many questions, is due to the fact that we are on the eve of the decision of the European Court in this matter. We also hope that this will be a real assessment which will improve the situation of the Swiss franc mortgage holders, and this fund has been controversial throughout and was not greeted with great happiness among Swiss franc mortgage holders. So I think that we cannot agree to help all clients, including those holding zloty mortgages, for thousands of families in a difficult situation, so that the whole bill is held hostage by this issue.
Pomocy dla wszystkich klientów.
In the opinion of Janusz Szewczak of the Law and Justice Party, yesterday's draft of the bill does not change the substance of the matter.
There is some gnashing of teeth, but I would even say that even if it passes in its current shape, this law does not matter, and decisions that are significant for the justice system will be subject to the judgment of a court in this case.
Krystyna Skowrońska from the Civic Platform Party claims that there is no obligation or any willingness on the part of the banks to allow conversion and to agree and conclude new agreements with persons who have taken out such loans. She also believes that no promises to the holders of Swiss franc mortgages have been made by either the President or the Law and Justice Party. This is only changing the criteria of law on the support to borrowers in a difficult situation, so this is only to improve the law which was prepared by the Civic Platform Party. Did you have to wait 3 years to announce success? You could have talked about it 2 or 3 years ago.
At the moment, there is only this part of the law that was drafted by the Civic Platform, and it is only a slight correction of the fund, which almost did not work. I count on 1,000 people in 4 years using it, 20 million out of more than half billion available, so if it improves, maybe it will benefit between 2,000 to 3,000 people, and we have zloty loan contracts with 5 million people in Poland.
In August 2017, the President submitted to the Sejm a draft amendment to the Act of 2015 on the support to borrowers who took out a housing loan finding themselves in a difficult situation. This is the only bill concerning Swiss franc loans that has been adopted so far. If the Sejm accepts the latest amendments by Cymański, the conversion fund will be completely removed. Voting on the presidential bill is probably still possible today.
Today, the Prime Minister of Croatia, Andrzej Plenković, met Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. Croatia has always been good friends with Poland. In particular, the Prime Minister said, the time when we have been together in the European Union shows our common interest in how we can show each other solidarity. Issues discussed during the meeting concerned safety, regional cooperation and cooperation within the 3 Seas initiative. Also, the question of the Berlin process and the Western Balkans summit were discussed.
In the context of the multi-annual financial framework, the Prime Minister pointed out that a budget which is good for Central Europe is also good for the whole EU. As he added, leveling the playing field in terms of development increases the competitiveness of the whole continent. The Prime Minister has highlighted also the importance of building north-south energy and transport connections, which will increase safety and improve trade possibilities for both countries. As the Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki pointed out, as part of the 3 Seas initiative, Poland strongly supports this dimension of our cooperation. One of the topics discussed during the meeting concerned also the Western Balkans Summit, which began on Wednesday in Poznań, which is to support the integration of the 6 Western Balkans countries with the European Union. This year, Poland took leadership of the Berlin process.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Do stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Hello, welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the temperatures will vary from 10 degrees in Lublin up to 14 degrees in the west, as well as around Gdańsk. Tomorrow during the day it will be quite rainy, so umbrellas will be needed. The maximum temperature will be experienced in Kraków.
You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition. This is a vacation time here in the Northern Hemisphere. People go with their kids to the sea and do some nice things, entertainment. Some people are entertaining themselves. Some people make money on this entertainment. And one of those who make money, hopefully, is Bartłomiej Szponarski of Planeta Robotów. Sir, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
And part of your field of the business is education, entertainment for kids.
Yes, that's right. I'm co-founder of Planeta Robotów, which is an institution which organizes workshops for children, mostly for children, based on robotics. So we are building together with kids robots and code them to perform certain tasks.
Okay, so how many students or pupils you teach this year?
So right now it's we are in 10 cities in Poland.
So that's quite a scope.
Yeah, it's quite a scale right now, so it's a big challenge for us. But during summertime, we are organizing half camps. It's a popular form for
kids spend time in the evening with their parents, but you take care for the daily or
that's right. So they don't have to go on a summer camp and be separated from parents for like 10 days, so they can still sleep at home. But during the day they've got a lot of activities, mostly connected with science, because that's our main goal.
Okay. Is that popular among parents? I mean, I remember the 1980s when children were sent to this coding or computer camps when they were learning the computer languages like BASIC. Nobody knows now what is BASIC and why should anyone learn it. Yet the question is, will be the same pattern work for the robotic coders of today, that the robots of tomorrow will not need those skills that you are teaching?
You know, it's evolving very rapidly. As you said, the things that were popular like 20 years ago today are maybe not obsolete, but a little bit forgotten, right? But anyways, if you learn the fundamentals of coding, of constructing the mechanism of a robot, even in the future, even if it will be changed to some other languages, coding languages, the transition that a student can make in the future, it's going to be much easier if the fundamentals that he learned in the past was solid.
Okay, and you have some tools, you teach the kids on the basics of some practice. How do you do that?
Yeah, so usually it looks like that the workshop lasts for about 1.5 hours, and the students are given a goal to achieve. For instance, they have to create a robot which cannot fall out of the table. So the students have to think how to construct the robot, so it's the one thing, and the second, how to code, how to write the code to perform this task which were given on the class, right? So they have to think, they have to construct, and they have to code. And our tutors help them to achieve this goal.
You are using this famous Lego Mindstorm series that's designed for kids and for such activities.
Yes, it's hugely popular right now. It's the 3rd edition of this educational set. It's getting very popular right now. Lego is even distributing more different products among different age category. Mindstorms is for like kids like in primary school, but they are providing new products, which educational sets for even preschool kids, which they can use them to learn the basics of coding.
I've heard about some 40 years old that enjoy building robots out of the Mindstorm as well.
Yeah, because you know the Legos are like
the men never grow. That's the theory.
That's right. Legos are great for as well as children, as well for and adults.
Okay, so we have this pupils, we have this robots. So how many pupils is per one instructor?
It's like 6 or 7, so it's not much, because the pupils need to have big attention from our tutors, from our instructors. The tasks are quite challenging for them.
Do they know something before, or they just
they know how to construct Legos, because they've got them in their homes, right? So it's fun for them. It's easier for them to initiate those classes, because they already knew something, right? So it's not an abstract thing for them. So it's much easier for them to start their journey with robotics.
Mm-hmm. Afterwards, and because you have this activity for some time, how long you are providing these lessons?
We are on the market for 5 years right now, so we are still developing. As I said, our beginnings were here in Warsaw, but right now, as I said, we grew a bit.
Okay, do you have any feedback from the parents? Like, will this particular robotic camp was helpful in directing the children's attention to some science and technology?
Yeah, we are constantly trying to receive feedback from parents to improve our lessons. Usually, the feedback is positive.
Okay.
The feedback is positive, and the kids are happy for.
And they want to go for this science and technology career. That's very good. If you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, the Mars Society runs a robotic challenge every year, and there are challenges both in the United States and in Poland. And recently in Utah, the team for Kielce, Technological University of Kielce, won the challenge, beating 40 groups out of the best university all over the world. This September is another challenge here in Poland, and this will be kind of world championship because the Poles are champions in this Martian robotic thing. Maybe there is something in us that lets us outthink other students, and I believe that the beginning of this is in activities such as Planeta Robotów, represented here by Bartłomir Szponacki. Sir, thank you very much for this brief conversation, and that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Good evening, welcome again. Tomorrow during the day in Poland we will see up to 22 degrees Celsius. In Warsaw it will be 17 degrees and showers will appear in the northern parts of Poland. In Europe the temperatures will remain very high in most places. Up to 34 degrees in Madrid, 29 in Paris and 32 in Bern, Switzerland. Thank you and good night.
The alpaca is a species of South American camelid. Alpacas are kept in herds that graze on the level heights of the Andes of southern Peru, western Bolivia, Ecuador and northern Chile. Here in Poland, in Krzeczyn Mały, 3 French partners, Charles, David and Paul, started an alpaca farm. Combining tradition with quality, they established Le Chardon, a brand producing handmade duvets.
All right then, Charles. So we're here with the alpacas, and it's feeding time. Maybe you could tell us first of all, how come there's alpacas here in a field in the Polish countryside?
Well, I wanted to do some agriculture here, and the idea came of some friends of mine who came here for a weekend and wanted to give me a present. They thought about an alpaca, but then you can't have one alpaca alone. You need to have at least 2 or 3. So they thought it was not such a easy present, and they started reading about it, and that the wool was very interesting in all kind of aspects. Już, wystarczy. And they proposed me to breed them here. And I had no idea what an alpaca was, if it was a chemical product, or I didn't even know the name. And we started this a few years ago with 10 of them, and now we just had this year the first one who was born 3 days ago, a little male. That's enough. And we got 37 now.
Blimey. So they've really jumped up in numbers quickly. So they breed quite fast then?
Really slowly, actually. A female does one baby a year.
Okay.
The gestation is 11 and a half months. So it's quite long.
Okay, yeah, it is.
So it's quite long, especially compared to the rabbits we have also, which go quite quicker.
Yes, they do indeed. Okay, and so tell me about like your kind of routine with the alpacas then. Are you here like regularly and feeding and interacting with them? Or?
We feed them every morning and every evening. We have hay. They have as much hay as they want. Water and this element which are some cereals and minerals that they have in South America. They don't have here so much. And as you can see, they seem to like it.
Yeah, they do indeed, yeah. And do you think that they're sort of well adjusted to this kind of Polish countryside life now?
I think so, because it's quite comparable to what they have in South America, in Bolivia and Peru.
Right.
Because it gets quite hot in the summer and cold here in the winter. Especially, the thing is that the colder it is, the more wool they do.
The more wool they produce, right?
They produce,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so, what do you do with that wool once you've sheared the alpacas?
We shear them once a year, around June, which is the best time because it gets hot and it's the best for them. And then we do some duvets out of their wool. The wool is interesting because it's hypoallergenic. So it's good for people who can't have duck
feathers.
Duck feathers. Actually, duck feathers are very good, but the animal suffers when you take the feathers out of them. Whereas alpacas, they're shaven once a year, just as sheep. So they don't mind it. It's good for them.
So the alpacas actually, it's a positive for them to have their wool shaved.
They need it, because if you don't do it, it's like sheep. They get very hot in the summer. Yeah, the wool is very good too because it keeps you cool during the summer and hot during the winter. It's very natural.
So do you sleep with an alpaca wool duvet?
I do since a few years, and I have to say my nights have changed.
Yeah,
yes.
for the better, right?
We should go and see the alpaca duvet factory.
Fantastic. And do you know of much else, something similar to this in Poland, or is this really just one of a kind?
No, there are some other farms where they have alpaca in Poland, but the two countries which are the most developed for it in Europe are Germany and England. They have the best ones and New Zealand is very good for, just like sheep.
Yeah, it's that kind of environment. All right, fantastic. So, I'll tell you what, let's go and have a look at the alpaca wool factory.
Perfect.
We're here with Piotrek, who's the alpaca keeper here on Lubin Farm. So, Piotrek, could you tell us a little bit about what you do in your job?
Hoduje alpaki, jestem kierownikiem.
I help with alpaca breeding. I'm shepherd here and I'm very happy with my job. They are such a nice animals.
Co to więcej powiedzieć? Bardzo przyjemne zwierzęta.
And could you tell us a little bit about the alpacas themselves and what are they like, and do they have individual sort of characters and personalities?
They do have different characters. Each one of them is individual. They are very friendly creatures.
Zwierzęta.
Could you maybe give me an example of how the typical character traits of an individual alpaca?
spokojne, w każdym bądź razie nie są agresywne.
They are calm. They are not aggressive. It's easy to love them, really. They are so nice.
Te zwierzęta pokochać i w ogóle.
How much wool does that actually produce?
We get over 100 kilograms of wool a year.
Do they ever spit on you?
Rzadko.
They don't really spit on me. It is a natural thing for animals like this to spit sometimes, though.
Ale raczej sporadycznie.
Mr. Piotrek, thank you very much for joining us here at Poland Daily Culture. Right then, Charles, we've seen the different processes of processing the wool, and finally here we are, and we're going to see the finished product, the duvet itself.
Yes, so here is the duvet we produced, transforming grass, which the alpaca ate, into something that will make you sleep hot in the winter and cold and cool in the summer. So there we are.
Fantastic.
As we spend a third of our time sleeping, I think it's quite important to sleep well. And there we are, the final product.
Okay, excellent. So, could you tell us something a little bit about this business? So, we're based here in Western Poland, and this is sort of how it begins, but this is not the end of its journey, right?
No, so it's produced here, and for now we are selling it in France, in Paris. We just started a little time ago, and we hope to be able to sell it here too in Poland, in England maybe, and sometime in America, why not?
So Charles, tell me about the difference between this duvet and your standard duvet in a shop. What are the advantages of this one?
Well, I think we can divide duvets into two kinds. The first one would be natural ones and non-natural ones. For people who don't want to sleep under non-natural duvets, there are left or alpaca wool or other wools, or the feathers from ducks and gooses, which suffer a great deal from taking the feathers out of them. And the other thing I would say is that it's the wool is so hot that it makes the duvet very, very thin. Very, very thin. And it keeps you hot in the winter when it's cold, and also cool in the summer.
And Charles, as I understand it, it's also quite a positive for allergy sufferers.
Exactly. Everyone can sleep under it, babies, old people, people who have allergies, without suffering from it at all.
Oh, then Charles, so if somebody wants to purchase this duvet, how would they go about doing that?
Well, for now, on our website, Le Chardon, and we hope so quite soon in some shops in Paris, and maybe soon enough in Warsaw and London, maybe.
So Charles, your job here primarily is overseeing the processing of the wool and the final product, but as I understand it, there's several other compartments to the business.
Yes, I mainly look upon the alpacas. One of my associates, David de Jouffroy, was more into projecting the duvet and now selling it in Paris. And the third one, Paul Rothfeld, he's doing all the marketing and selling too. So we complete ourselves quite well.
Fantastic. Look forward to seeing it on the market soon.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are visiting the Polish Central Bank and the Center of Money, where they provide education on the history of various world currencies and the Polish zloty. Join us as we learn about the 1,000 years of history of the Polish currency. During our visits to the NBP Money Center, we will speak with Adam Skrauta from the Education and Publishing Department of Narodowy Bank Polski. The Polish Central Bank functions under its current name since 1945, but is a continuation of two earlier banks operating in the 19th and early 20th century, serving a similar function. Today we're discussing the history behind the Polish currency known as the Polish zloty, and now we're talking about the time when partition is finally over. The partition has been a really long time, and I imagine a lot of different currencies being circulated. So once Poland regained its independence, all of these currencies have to come together and somehow form a single monetary system. How did that come to be?
It was very challenging. So at least three different currencies were in circulation. There were no economic ties between each parts of Poland. They had to, the government had to find some provisional solution. So there was already, they already had zloty in mind, but before this, they had to find some compromise, and they decided to use so-called Polish mark as a intermediary currency until 1924. It was also the first years of independence were not very easy in economic terms. There was an episode of hyperinflation, some war in the east too, and this make the budget, the expenses go red, and only in 1924, one of the most significant Polish economists, Władysław Grabski, who was also the prime minister at the time, he introduced a very important reform to reintroduce Polish zloty in 1924, but also to establish the second central bank in our history, who was charged with protecting the value of this currency. So it was a very, the system was based on gold and on other foreign currency that were stable, and to make people trust them. The issue of new zloty was closely supervised. Not to exceed demand, and to prevent inflation. This new system existed until 1939 when the Second World War broke out, and we can say it was quite successful. It wasn't an easy time in the whole world, because I think we should remember the great crisis in 1929, which also hit Poland very hard. However, a stable currency was one of the pillars that kept the economy in one piece.
1918 was a year of changes in Central Eastern Europe. As the Austro-Hungarian and Russian empires collapsed, new sovereign states appeared. Meanwhile, the communist revolution threw Russia into turmoil, and the value of the millions of Russian rubles held by Polish citizens was put into question. So after the partition, I would imagine people still have currency remaining from the past era, especially the rubles. There's a lot of them laying around. And I was wondering, do they retain their monetary value? Were they able to be exchanged for what is the Polish zloty, or do they just all go to waste?
Society was tired of war, and of course, wars make people poorer.
Of course.
So nobody wanted these people to lose even more. So of course, as we mentioned earlier, Polish mark was chosen as a provisional currency for some time, and there was a big big undertaking to exchange all these other currencies for Polish mark. So there were some legal acts introduced where it was determined when, for example, Russian ruble stops being legal tender in Poland. And by that time, people were offered to exchange this money for Polish mark. And for this, bank institutions were used. So you could just go to a cash office and exchange your money.
So in the mid-1920s, from 24 to 25, Germany waged a trade war on Poland, and then subsequently on 1929, there's also economic crisis in Poland. I was wondering, how did the Polish currency survive through all these hardships?
Okay, so there were some safety mechanism introduced. So, for example, when Polish currency was losing value, the central bank could carry out a monetary intervention. So, to use their reserves and release them to the market, and in this way to stabilize the rate exchange. However, the reform that we mentioned earlier in 1924 had some negative consequences, and a lot of negative factors popped up at the same time. One of them was the tariff war with Germany. But also there was a problem of high unemployment. Society was exhausted with all those austerity that were connected with the reform, and after a brief period of high economic development, there was a recession, and after the recession there was again economic growth, and the prospects were looking good until 1929, when again everything changed significantly, and some economists say that Poland was trying too hard to keep their currency strong in the early 30s, when the crisis hit very hard. Sure. And because of this, our economy wasn't competitive enough to comparing to other economies, and that's why the recession was very, very deep.
As we have seen today, the history of the Polish zloty is long, but at times tumultuous, with wars, invasions, and periodical financial crises. However, today, the Polish Central Bank has managed to keep the value of the Polish zloty stable and secure. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
What can you say about Torun that hasn't been said before? Well, it all depends on how you look at it. At any rate, we're going to give it our best shot to be a little different. Torun is perhaps the prime example of Gothic architecture in the world. Its medieval quality is virtually pristine. And fitting this setting, it's also the birthplace of Nicholas Copernicus, who taught us that the Earth goes around the sun, and not the other way around. I'm not going to say that this is everything you always wanted to know about Torun, but were afraid to ask, but it's close to it. This is certainly a city not to be missed. It's a pleasure to be enjoyed slowly and deliberately. It would take a couple of weeks to see everything in this city and really soak in the atmosphere, and that would still be pushing it. But we are doing our dead level best to show you the greatest hits of Toruń. So sit back and enjoy the next few episodes as Toruń is unveiled before your eyes. I'm Will, this is Poland Daily Travel, and we love to see you watching. Like us on YouTube and subscribe if you really, really like us. So join us for Poland Daily Travel does Toruń.
Hello folks, and welcome back to Poland Daily Travel. We are here. I'm standing with, of course we're here. Where else could we be? We couldn't be there, although, no, here's good. I'm here with Karolina Rucinska, my guide and our expert on Toruń. What she doesn't know about Toruń is not worth knowing, for sure. Behind us we have the St. Mary's Church and we have the planetarium. Interesting composition of this shot, folks. The planetarium, science, study of the heavenly bodies, and the church, the study of heaven and spiritual bodies. What say you, Karolina, to that?
No, I would say that's an interesting notion, actually. And that's true, because those two buildings are just next to each other. And this is the not only round building around here, because we also have another one, which is the prison, so which makes this part of the city pretty weird. That's
strange,
why we
yeah.
call it the Bermuda Triangle.
The Bermuda Triangle.
Exactly. So, but no worries,
Science,
no one
church,
died here.
and prison, right? Science,
Yes,
church,
exactly.
and prison. Okay.
Yeah. So, but another.
But we don't
interesting-
disappear if we walk down the street. That's your point.
Hopefully not. I've crossed
Yeah.
this path many times and I'm still there.
You're
so.
still here?
Yeah, I'm still here, so
Okay.
hopefully this time doesn't happen.
It's not a figment of our imagination. Okay, you're
Yeah.
still here. And what about St. Mary's Church?
This church is actually the second oldest church in Toruń, and it was built 700 years ago by the Franciscans.
Okay.
And because the Franciscans is the order of beggars who cannot show money or wealth, that's why this church doesn't really have a bell tower. Only three.
Because St. Francis gave away, he was born rich, gave away everything.
To the poor.
Like Wittgenstein, he did the same. Wittgenstein, also born to a hugely wealthy Austrian family, gave everything away for philosophy. Another interesting composition. He gave it all, Wittgenstein gave it up for philosophy, and St. Francis gave it up for God and religion. Okay, and?
But we have some hypocrisy by the Franciscans, because on one hand there's the lack of the tower,
Mhm.
but the other part of the church is really monumental, it's huge, so it makes up for the lack of the tower.
Okay, okay.
In my opinion. So,
Yeah.
and actually also the height of that church is amazing, because
It's a huge church.
It's a huge church,
Yeah.
and until 15th century it used to be the highest church in this region of Europe. With
Okay.
27
You mean in
meters
Central
height.
Europe, or?
Yeah, around this,
Yeah, okay.
until 15th century.
Because
so.
it's very high. This is a Gothic structure. It's a prime example of Gothic structure, and it's magnificent vaulting ceiling, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly,
I
very
hope we can see
typical
inside.
for that time, the stellar ceilings that reminds us of sky, of heaven, of God,
Right.
at the same time.
Reaching up to heaven.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
people could be closer to
Yeah.
God as they believed, right?
Right.
So that was the
Yeah.
reason why the churches are so slender and so tall.
I'm glad they felt that way, because then we have, if they hadn't felt that way and tried to,
We wouldn't have those churches.
we wouldn't have these
Yeah,
beautiful
exactly.
buildings, which are some of the
That's
most remarkable buildings in the world. The Christian churches that were built throughout Europe and during the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance, right?
Yeah, that was driven by faith. So,
Yeah.
so
It was driven by faith, exactly. The importance of St. Mary's, how does it relate to St. John's, which is the cathedral, also extremely old church? Which is older, St. Mary's or St. John's?
No, St. John's.
St. John's is older.
Cathedral is older. Yeah.
What year was that?
There is no precise year,
Yeah.
like no precise date, but actually the church was started to be built just after the foundation of the city, more or less. So the first half of 13th century.
First half of the 13th century.
The presbytery of the cathedral is the oldest part, which is
Right.
almost 800 years old. Yes, like as
Right.
the city. So.
Okay.
I
The city is
think
about
this is-
800 years, you would say?
1233, that's the official date of
Yeah.
the foundation. So more or less
Gosh.
800 years.
We were recently in a church in Czerwinsk nad Wisła, Czerwinsk on the Vistula, that is older than that. It's actually, the church was built, it's one of the oldest church buildings in Poland. It was some of the oldest stone masonry, and it's from about 1040. So it's even before the Norman conquest of Britain. Imagine, almost 1,000 years old. And so 800 years. Sorry, Torun. Sorry, Torun. You're not impressing us. We've seen that. We've seen something older.
This is Gothic style. This is the oldest, the St. John's Cathedral, that's the oldest Gothic style. Because, of course, before Gothic there was Romanism, yes?
Romanesque.
Romanesque style, so all that was constructed with stone.
I wasn't correcting, I was just agreeing with you.
And then they moved to the brick. So these are the best examples of the brick architecture in this.
It's the brick, as we were saying before. The Gothic is brick architecture, and it gives it that solidity, which allows it to last for so long. I mean, they were built to last forever. It's not stone, it's brick, it's carefully masoned and put together to last forever. And look how it still looks like it was built, you know, 100 years ago or something.
It will probably be here for like a couple of
millennia.
Centuries, millennia.
No, as long as it's maintained, right? Yeah.
So medieval people could have this great technology.
What about the planetarium? What can we see there? It's right here.
The planetarium is actually the 19th century neo-Gothic building that was initially used as a gas container. A gas container for lighting up the lights, the city lights.
Oh, so it held the gas for the city lights of Torun. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. And then several years ago it was imaginatively changed into a planetarium. So this cupola right now on which you can just see the different shows about the stars and the planets and relax. So it's a really, really nice place. So if you're in Torun, you have to go there.
Yeah, it's a great place to go and visit. We can't really capture that with our cameras, but you know what a planetarium looks like, and that's a good one, right? How long has it been there? 10 years or?
More.
More
Several
than that?
Years, yeah.
Okay, for a while. Poland Daily Travel, stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break with me and with Carolina. Thanks for watching.